Welcome to the Epic Success Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Shannon Irvine. Okay, I got all the butterflies in my stomach because I'm looking through the list of podcasts that I want to create. And I did a podcast last week on patterns and pattern recognition. And I alluded to the last year and what I've been going through and experiencing on a whole different level. And as I thought and prayed about this, I really want to share my journey because my journey, I hope, can help you just see that you can do hard things, that you can overcome, that you can get purposeful about what you're saying to yourself, being aware of what you're saying to yourself and how it's literally guiding and directing your life. And the last year, if you are in my tribe, you've probably heard this a lot, but the last year, literally to the day, we got in our car and we drove from, and I'll try not to get emotional about this because I still get a little emotional. We drove from my dream home, my dream area, Encinitas, California, San Diego, to North Texas. And why we did that, although I've had a lot of people ask, honestly, if I just really boil it down, my husband and I, our relationship is like most people's. We tend to attract our opposites. And me being the type A driver, go-getter, constantly growing, constantly making, he is more grounded. He sees more details than I do. He's a little slower than I am, more methodical, those kind of things. And that's what God does, right? He gives us what we need, always. And so, in our whole marriage, we've been married like 17, going on 17 years. And most of the time he's been like, you know what, babe, if this is what you want, let's go for it. Let's go for it. He's been super supportive with us starting the charity and us starting the business and then us starting the online business and have, all throughout our marriage, just super supportive, super, like there've been times where he's like, I think we should do this. And, I'll think about it and then it'll just be something that just doesn't set well with me. And I'll say, you know what, this doesn't set well. And he's like, okay, I can hear that. And I respect that. And it just worked out, right? Worked out that way. But this time around, all I can say is that he just had like an intensity about wanting to move that was unlike what he had done before. So that's why we really moved. For me, I moved because I wanted to honor my husband. And I had no idea what that one change would shake up internally for me. So just to rewind the tape a little bit, February before we moved, I had gone through a major surgery, got my breast implants removed. I think I did a podcast about the why and what has happened since then. But really during that time of healing was when this decision was made. And, the way my brain thinks is like, well, we could buy a little condo here in San Diego eventually, and then just kind of come back and forth and it'll all be fine. And that is true. However, what I didn't recognize were some of the patterns, which I talked about in last week's podcast, that I didn't recognize were there. And because we had to change everything and it amped up the stress level because of our two kids, school, animals, doctors, all the things. And my dad was sick and having brain issues. And I was still trying to recover. I, for the first time in my life, couldn't handle the stress like I handled it before. And I started creating this pattern where I just stopped wanting to try. And that was so uncomfortable for me. Like I would still throw myself into the business, but as here's what I want you to hear. How you are shows up whether you want it to or not. How you are shows up whether you want it to or not. And so I'm in this almost like a midlife crisis in a sense of like, I don't really, I don't know if I want to be here. And my kids were struggling and I got the vid a couple times. And so I had that on top of it. And I started getting into this pattern of saying this one statement. This one statement was, well, all this is so hard. I just need a little bit of a break. All this is so hard. I just need a little bit of a break. And those of you who've been around the community for a while know that these patterns, they sneak up on you sometimes. I didn't know that this pattern was sneaking up on me. I wasn't aware of it. Luckily, I have mentors around that started throwing up a couple of the red flags like, wow, every time we've been coaching, this is not your usual to stay in this state of indecision, in this state of feeling like you need a break, in this state. And in that time, because the state I was in, for better, some of this was for really good that it happened, and some of it was very stressful. But my entire team, I had to let a lot of people go. It kind of shook the foundation of my business. It shook the foundation of my health. It shook the foundation of my mental stamina, strength, perseverance. And that's what patterns do, right? They're subtle, they're sly. And I'm a person of faith. So I talk about how, the enemy doesn't come in like screaming at like a screaming banshee, comes in by whispering condemnation in your ear. He comes in and he says, yeah, you really suck. Like, who would listen to you? Like, you're tired. Just forget it. Don't work out. So here's the cascade that started. And again, this is very embarrassing, but I want to share it in hopes that it serves you well, knowing that I'm doing this from a place of coming completely out of it. But I made the decision because I was tired and it was stressful and I needed a break. Remember, that's the repetition of the pattern I started, that I just stopped cooking at home. Didn't want to cook at home. So we started eating out all the time, which naturally we eat out a lot. I'm an ex-restaurant owner, and so I do really like that. But it went to another level. Like literally, I did not cook one meal for 6 straight months. Y'all, not good. So obviously, weight came with that, right? Because we're eating out all the time, then you're creating a different scenario in your health. And so now my health starts failing, and then I get the vid a couple times. And it's just, I didn't recognize, and I'm wondering if this is for you, is like, is there something that you're repeating when you go through hard things? That it's not there normally, but when you go through hard things, it's like this default protective mechanism that you go through. So luckily, I have really good friends around me that kind of pulled the flag, because coaches need coaches. Like, if I want you to hear that, like, coaches, I need coaches, you need coaches, you need to be coached, and you need to be coached by people who've gone through it and built what you want to build, that have gone through hard things. That's why I'm sharing this, because I am doing really, really well in my business, yet I still allowed a pattern to interrupt that flow. And now, of course, I've taken that thought captive. I'm creating a pattern that creates the thoughts, that creates the emotions, which creates the beliefs back where I was standing in strength and trusting God and doing the micro habits. If you listen to that podcast episode, so I'm really, it's kind of like I got thrusted into a re-indoctrination into the sync results model and the sync neurocoaching model, which is the model which creates anything result you want in your mind, and it removes any block that's in the way. So I started unknowingly, starting with a little tiny, grain of sand, and then a pebble, and then a boulder, and then a speed bump, and then a bigger boulder. I created this pattern that was starting to get in my way. It stopped me from serving as deeply as I was serving in my business, because I was tired, right? So as you see how it's like, okay, let's just be real with each other. Like, legit, I had a reason to be tired, all right? Like, I had a reason, but there's a point where the true reason, like, I need a weekend to just sleep this stress and this energy off, and then I'm going to hit it back Monday and I'm going to go, became this crutch. that allowed me to stay in judgment. I still was in judgment of my husband for us leaving. I was in judgment for the things around me that were different. I was in judgment of why my team wasn't doing what they were doing. I was in judgment of why I wasn't the person that I wanted to be. Because that's what happens when you create dysfunctional patterns, is you also create turmoil internally because it doesn't align with your identity, right? That thought did not align with my identity at all. And so there became this opposite cognitive dissonance where my true identity was saying that doesn't belong, right? That doesn't belong. And the interesting thing about the way our brains work and also the way God works is that gets more and more intense until you do something about it, right? And that's what happened for me. I kept getting more and more intense. And finally, like a few months after we moved here, I was like, okay, full stop. And I stopped and looked, where's the pattern? Where's the pattern that has me in an identity that I am not, right? And I'm wanting to tell you this because it can be so subtle, right? Yeah, of course, we went through like some of the life's biggest. So I lost my dad in May. I went through a surgery. We went through a move across country. We had to change everything for our kids at new school, all that. Yes, I could write them down as reasons, right? But I also have a life by design, not by default. I have a life by design, not by default. And I want that for you too, because you are the creator of your thoughts and your thoughts create your future. And those thoughts, this is why having a tribe around you, a community around you that knows your dreams, that knows your vision, that can hold your vision high is so important, because I had that. And had I not had that, I wonder if I would have saw it. But I had this reflection. So month one, there was like, with my coaches, there was like, yeah, you're moving, all this stuff's going on, like have your team take care of your people and get it done. And then month two, they were like, hey, like some of the things I'm hearing you say aren't aligned with where you want to be. And by month three, then they got like indignant. And that's the power of having a really strong coach that holds your vision high. And that's exactly what we do. And I do inside our coaching certification and our coaching programs, is hold that vision high. Because had that not been, and here I am, I'm a multi-7-figure business owner. Things were still like on the outside in, everything's looking good. I'm still going live. I'm still doing the things, but the conversation of I'm tired, I just can't do this anymore, this is hard, started doing this stacking that I talked about on the last podcast. And a good coach called me out on it. And so I did exactly what I talked about on last week's podcast. I said, okay, wait a minute. Started this pattern. Do I want to keep this pattern? And the answer to that was no, like absolutely no. This is not who I am. This is not what I stand for. This is not what I stand for other coaches. This is not what I stand for in the marketplace. And this is scary for me to share because I mean, we don't want to share anytime that like we go through a struggle. Now this has been 9 months. We've really starting to thrive. Things are going really, really well because I had someone spot my blind spots. And my challenge is, do you have that? If you're in our community and say you're in our community, say you're a certified neuro coach or a master neuro coach and you've been in the community, but because you're not in the certification anymore, you're lone wolfing it again, then you need to get into the 7-figure coach program. You can't do this alone. Like not because I'm this important person, but because your dreams matter, because your vision matters, and because you will have blind spots, right? You will have blind spots. Or maybe you're not in any of our communities and you're like, holy moly, like I have big visions and big dreams and there are patterns that keep getting in my way. Then you need to get in our coaching program and get on our hot seat calls and just really be in the conversation of building patterns that work and removing the patterns that don't. Right? Because coaches need to be coached. You know, people who are helping people transform need to be coached. I needed to be coached. And had I not been, it's very possible, probable not, because I probably would have gotten to a tipping point, but I might have lost 3 more months. I might, who knows how much longer the blind spot would have remained for me. So that's the thing, like being in a place where number one, you can get coached, and number two, that your vision can be held high, and number three, that you are with a person that's gone where you want to go, right? The key to this is speed, right? It's speed. Would I have eventually seen the blind spot and tried to fix it? Yeah, but I could imagine the amount of damage that would have been done and the automation I had to now remove versus just reversing, right? So that's why I wanted to share a little bit about this. Like, you can do hard things, and you can have seasons where things are different than you expected them to be, and still hold the identity that you want. But it really requires people being around you that care for you, that see you, that you're not invisible, and that they see and care for your vision as much as you do. And of course, that's what I really strive to do inside all of our programs, whether it's our, coaching programs, coaches need coaches, whether it's our certification program, or all the way to our 7-figure coach program. It's really about having a community of people. Listen, here's the thing. My biggest goal is to have the people in my community do better than me. So when my mind is on how do I elevate you past me, that's a legacy play, right? I want to see you multiply bigger than me so that you can continue that impact. That's the kind of community you need to be in, right? There's somebody that cares that your success almost more than their own, right? And we have people in our lives, family, husbands, spouses, children, but let's be real. Chances are, like me, you probably have attracted somewhat of an opposite. It's very rare that I meet you like, yeah, this is my husband and we're exactly the same, right? So you need that community around you. You need the support around you. And just when you get into a place where you're creating a pattern that doesn't serve the vision, really being able to say, like, I want this pattern to go, and we can go after it together and remove it quickly and simply. That's the beautiful thing about the way your brain wires and fires. It's not a long, heavy thing. It's a super simple system. So, okay. So yeah, right now, back in it a big time, have been for a while, serving and delivering like I always have. And that part lights me up more than anything else. Working on getting the weight off from the 6 months of restaurant only, setting patterns to make that work. And behind my eyes, the identity I have is already happened. And so I'm looking forward to seeing around me what I already see behind my eyes. And I want that for you too. And it's okay for struggle to be part of it. It's okay to be human. It's okay to go through things. The key, however, is to not do it alone. And that's why I wanted to record this podcast today, to share a little bit about that. And I hope this serves you deeply, gives you, the courage to keep going, and challenges you to get in the community or get back in the community if you've been out on your own. Because honestly, if you want to go far, you go far together, right? All right, that's what I have this week for the Epic Success podcast. Of course, if this has helped you at all, I would love for you to reach out to me on Instagram, DM me, and let me know. I hope it does. I hope that's my heart for this episode. And the butterflies are still there as I'm ending the podcast. But just know I love you, and know that you're the creator of your thoughts, just like I am. And those thoughts create your future. So choose those thoughts wisely. All right. That's what I have for this week. See you next week on the Epic Success Podcast. Bye for now.